Hello, everyone. What if the most shocking royal racism scandal was just a paid-for performance? Leaked bank transfers and secret emails reveal that Meghan Markle secretly funded palace aides to fabricate racism allegations, sparking a crisis that could forever damage the royal family's reputation. We will uncover the secret payments, testimonies from trained insiders, and the moment the palace delivers its final verdict. Leave a comment with the number 1 to join us as we explore how power, money, and manipulation collide behind the palace walls and what it means for the future of the crown. Before we continue, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to stay updated. What if everything you thought you knew about palace intrigues was just a lie staged from within? Imagine palace corridors thick with intrigue, where whispers of racism don't come from real wounds, but are paid-for claims meant to tarnish the crown. Here's the shocking accusation. Meghan Markle, once hailed as a symbol of modernity, is alleged to have paid palace staff to fabricate stories of bias and discrimination within the royal family. Since her appearance on the balcony in 2018, Meghan's story has been about breaking invisible barriers and fighting prejudice within the world's most famous royal family. The world admired her courage, and the media painted her as an outsider hero ready to throw open the palace doors. But behind closed doors, new evidence reveals a different script. A calculated deception, with money exchanged for false testimonies to reinforce the victim narrative on the global stage. To understand fully, let's rewind to spring 2021, when private grievances began spilling into the public eye. Meghan's legal team fought battles with the press over privacy violations, and her statements grew increasingly accusatory, focusing on systemic bias. But palace insiders noticed something unusual. Aides who once praised the royal family suddenly started recounting petty acts of discrimination, and anonymous sources all traced back to a small faction within the palace. As the scandal escalated, sensational headlines emerged. Royal racism exposed, deep-rooted palace prejudice, Prince Philip's insensitive remarks spark outrage. Each headline drew in views, and every story reinforced the image of the monarchy as an outdated institution. But is the royal family truly at fault? Or is there a strategist pulling the strings behind the scenes? At the heart of the story lies a web of secret payments and hidden promises. Financial records reveal discrete transactions, recorded as consulting fees or event expenses, funneling into aides' accounts just before they gave explosive interviews. The amounts were small enough to avoid immediate suspicion, yet large enough to buy loyalty. Take the case of a senior communications officer, called Alice. Once a defender of the royal family, she suddenly began recounting insults and mockery she had overheard. Leaked emails reveal Meghan's team sending proposals, outlining talking points, and promising support if she spoke out. Alice's story appeared in multiple newspapers, sparking global controversy. But her bank account tells a different tale. Unexplained payments appeared right at the time of her interviews. Similarly, a palace photographer named Mark confided to friends that he was coached on how to describe events, including quotes he had never witnessed. In return, he received funding to support a community project he was struggling with. This wasn't charity. It was a strategic investment in a story designed to damage the royal image. Evidence also points to a coordinated campaign. Internal notes reveal a department within Meghan's team dedicated to managing the narrative and directing media strategy. Late-night strategy calls, presentations outlining media goals, and rehearsals for televised testimonies were all organized. Speaking the truth is one thing, but scripting it for others is something entirely different. If these allegations are true, the racism story isn't a spontaneous outburst, but a paid-for performance, orchestrated behind palace walls. Meghan may have turned the fight against prejudice into an art of manipulation, exploiting the very wounds she claimed to want to heal. What really led to Meghan Markle's final downfall? Comment number 2 to discover the shocking truth behind Meghan Markle's verdict is final, goodbye forever. They say palace walls have ears, but what if those ears were paid to listen and twist what they heard? Imagine a shadowy corridor where whispers echo, each whisper carefully placed to weave a perfect tapestry of scandal. Some clues point to a secret meeting in late April 2021 at Frogmore Cottage. A close aide was summoned and handed a document with talking points. She was convinced that the palace's prejudice threatened not only Meghan, but the very soul of the institution. Then came the offer of a consulting fee. From there, a subtle shift took place. Suggestions and prompts soon led a group of aides to recount petty offenses. A cold glance, a joke about colonial history, a hint about skin color. Each story fit Meghan's image as a mixed-race American woman treated coldly by the royal family. But upon closer inspection, inconsistencies emerged. Names changed, locations confused, and timelines adjusted to heighten the drama. Financial records reveal small, regular payments to the accounts of 10 staff members, unrelated to work duties or legitimate expenses. When one aide inquired about the source of the funds, she was told it was a community grant, but no paperwork or activities were documented. Each time a shocking statement appeared in the press, another payment followed. By the fall of 2021, the story had spiraled out of control. International headlines accused the royal family of racism, dividing public opinion. But behind the scenes, some aides grew uneasy, realizing they were being manipulated. Some tried to retract their statements, others stayed silent, fearing job loss. Finally, a whistleblower came forward, providing internal messages revealing coordination, strategy calls, media plans, and scripted testimonies. This was no spontaneous awakening. It was a calculated campaign. What is Meghan's motive? A media empire is taking shape, with film deals, million-dollar speaking engagements, and a public image built on intimate confessions. The narrative of overcoming prejudice can be a powerful brand, both profitable and captivating. But if the foundation of that brand rests on staged events and paid testimonies, the consequences could be profound. The palace faces serious fallout, reputational damage, suspended sponsorship deals, and traditions under scrutiny. Meghan and her team deny the allegations, calling it a smear campaign and insisting all financial support was legitimate. But the questions remain. Why did payments go through private channels? Why were only select aides chosen? And if the story was genuine, why do the testimonies sound so alike? At the heart of the story lies a maze of half-truths and conflicting testimonies. Every email, transfer, and deleted post is a clue. For the royal family, it's a crisis of trust. For the aides involved, it's the price of conscience. Meanwhile, Meghan's public image soars, but it rests on testimonies that are slowly unraveling. The final question is, can a story built on paid lies carry the weight of truth? Coming up, we will analyze shocking documents, emails like intelligence reports, transfers of tens of thousands of pounds, and testimonies turning heartbreak into fabrication. If these allegations hold true, this isn't just a royal scandal. It's a shift in how we understand the power of storytelling in the digital age. It all began with whispers in the palace back in April 2021. A young aide shared that Meghan appeared stressed during a meeting at Kensington, speaking about unnamed royal family members' discriminatory behavior. By mid-April, these whispers turned into formal complaints sent to Meghan's private secretary, accusing fleeting remarks about her background and subtle references to her American roots. The initial memos contained suggestive language, tense conversations over coffee in the palace kitchen, cold stares from a senior royal, and gossip about Meghan's modern views being out of step with centuries-old tradition. Yet, the aides who filed these complaints remained anonymous in the official records, anonymity that would later prove crucial in spreading the story. On April 23, 2021, the first statement appeared in a British newspaper from an anonymous palace source, claiming Meghan faced coldness since joining the royal family. The headline hinted at institutional bias. Public reaction erupted instantly. Social media flooded with outrage, labeling the monarchy as a symbol of outdated prejudice. Comments called for boycotting royal events and demanded transparency on racial issues within the palace. However, sharp journalists noticed something unusual. The initial source's tone and details mirrored subsequent articles exactly, with repeated descriptions of furtive glances and sighs nearly verbatim, as if taken from a common script. The timing of the leak was also suspicious, coinciding with the announcement of Meghan's upcoming Netflix deal, a move that elevated her platform but also intensified scrutiny on royal protocols. Behind the scenes, palace records reveal a series of memos exchanged between Meghan's legal team and media advisors. Legal correspondents emphasized controlling the narrative, citing previous media inaccuracies to justify a proactive messaging strategy. A media draft from the week before the leak listed potential grievances, feelings of isolation, racial jokes, and offensive comments about heritage. These lists matched almost perfectly with the content of the initial anonymous statements. At the end of April, 3 palace aides from different departments came forward with similar, more detailed accounts. One described a private dinner where Meghan alleged a senior royal commented on her unusual background in front of guests. Another recalled hearing an aide joke about Meghan bringing American values into the palace. The consistency of these stories, despite coming from different sources, raised suspicion among palace staff. These allegations not only sparked debate but also plunged the royal family into crisis mode. Senior advisors held emergency meetings, drafting statements expressing deep concern while emphasizing ongoing investigation procedures. The communications team aimed to respond without escalating tensions or admitting fault. Meanwhile, private investigators were hired to trace the leak's source. tasked with identifying who provided the anonymous memos and whether palace systems were compromised. Cybersecurity logs revealed unusual access to personnel records in late March, just before the first public allegations, suggesting someone gathered names and department information to create credible sources. The palace's Human Resources Department launched an internal review, interviewing dozens of staff under confidentiality agreements. Some recounted harmless exchanges, such as compliments on Meghan's style or questions about her California roots. Others recalled fleeting comments, but nothing amounting to institutional racism. Every memory was carefully cross-checked against the anonymous allegations for evidence. Yet, the deeper the investigation, the clearer the contradictions became. Many aides named in the memos denied any knowledge of wrongdoing. A senior housekeeper was shocked to find his name in the leaked documents, insisting he was never interviewed nor spoke ill of the royal family. A junior servant claimed her testimony was entirely fabricated, pieced together from rumors and malicious additions. Then, an email from Meghan's team was leaked. Dated April 15th, a communications advisor wrote, "Posts need to go live before month end. Arrange 3 sources, 1 insider staff, 1 administrative employee, 1 external contractor. Focus on petty discriminatory behaviors, relatable and hard to deny." Attached was a spreadsheet with names and phone numbers, some matching palace directories. If genuine, this email is explosive evidence of orchestration. Palace leadership prepared for a confrontation, debating whether to publicly challenge Meghan's team or handle the matter internally to avoid further scandal. Publicly, Buckingham Palace issued a brief statement. "We are aware of reports concerning allegations of racism within the royal family. The matter is being taken seriously, and any substantiated concerns will be addressed." The diplomatic tone failed to quell the outrage on social media, instead reinforcing the perception that the monarchy was covering up the truth. International opinions were divided. In the U.S., commentators criticized the palace's response as a sign of entrenched privilege. In South Africa and India, comparisons were drawn to colonial legacies. Some lawmakers called for investigations into whether charitable funds were misused to generate false testimonies. Amid the turmoil, Meghan's Netflix project was announced on April 28th, promoting her as a truth-teller promising an unfiltered look into palace life. Critics found the timing suspicious, noting the deal would benefit from heightened attention on the royal controversy. However, Meghan's supporters pointed to her charitable work, speeches on gender equality, and interviews with Oprah as proof of her genuine concerns. They argued the leaked emails were a targeted attack aimed at discrediting the messenger. Investigative journalists pieced together timelines, publishing articles comparing anonymous allegations with payment evidence. One report revealed a consulting fee paid to an aide on April 10th, coinciding with her first media appearance recounting discriminatory comments. Another report traced charitable donations through a fund linked to Meghan's spokesperson, which then distributed money to palace staff. Public trust in the palace's story wavered, but so did belief in Meghan's allegations. Polls revealed a divide. Older generations supported the monarchy, viewing the claims as a ploy. Younger people tended to believe Meghan faced subtle discrimination. This polarization highlighted a deeper issue, not just the truth of the accusations, but the legitimacy of the monarchy in the modern world. By May 2021, 5 months after the initial whispers, the allegations had escalated into a full-blown crisis. The palace press office was forced to issue daily explanations and rebuttals. Meghan's team continuously hinted at deeper revelations, keeping media attention alive. But within the palace, concerns grew. Was the story manipulated from the start? Was the monarchy the victim of a sophisticated media strategy? This thought shattered old confidence, exposing unimaginable vulnerabilities. Investigation teams delved deep into the palace IT systems, suspecting the initial leak was a coordinated attack, not a spontaneous event. Investigators dug deep into the palace's IT systems, believing the initial leak of anonymous allegations was a coordinated attack, not a spontaneous outbreak. Digital forensic experts analyzed server logs, tracing suspicious access points and cross-referencing timestamps with palace event schedules. They discovered a series of remote logins on March 28 from an IP address linked to a private research firm specializing in reputation management. These logins occurred just days before the first memo leaked to the tabloid press. At the same time, auditors discovered small but regular payments of around $1,000 into staff accounts, labeled as special project fees. These payments coincided with the times those individuals gave interviews to the press. When questioned, the intermediaries distributing the funds claimed they were for professional development, yet no training programs were documented. An anonymous palace employee described the shock. "We were always told the palace didn't use consultants for internal matters. Suddenly, some people held secret meetings and then came forward with stories of racism. They felt pressured. If they didn't speak out, they risked being sidelined or having their contracts not renewed." As these revelations spread, investigative journalists began digging into the backgrounds of the aides who first spoke out. Initially praised for their courage, some articles were later deleted or appended with disclaimers after payment trails emerged. In December 2021, a tabloid published an article titled, "Palace Insiders Speak Out, Meghan's Victim Story Exposed," quoting aides retracting their testimonies, claiming they were coached and paid. The article released group chat messages where they vented frustrations over their roles in the fabricated play. However, the report also acknowledged that private conversations were difficult to dismiss entirely, leaving open the possibility that genuine grievances had been overshadowed. Public opinion was divided. One side argued that the palace's efforts to trace the leak proved ill intent from Meghan's team. The other believed the focus on payments distracted from the core issue of royal prejudice. On social media, hashtags like the Meghan Justice and a royal cover-up alternated in popularity. The palace press office wavered between strong denials and cautious acknowledgments that personal experiences may vary. Internally, some proposed releasing salary records, issuing a public apology, or establishing a commission to investigate racism, but feared that admitting fault would damage the monarchy's image. The controversy spilled into international diplomacy. Commonwealth leaders, who had once invited Meghan and Harry on goodwill visits, began to distance themselves. Invitations to cultural and charitable events were withdrawn. In Australia and Canada, the press questioned funding for royal tours. Renowned pianist Daniel Barenboim, a longtime patron, expressed disappointment and called for legitimate concerns about race not to be ignored. Inside the palace, the personnel investigation dragged on, affecting morale and daily operations. Long-serving staff feared the precedent it set. anyone disgruntled could exploit similar tactics. A department head lamented, "This is the most toxic atmosphere I've experienced in 2 decades. No one knows whom to trust, and every conversation could end up in the papers." By 2022, the palace was at an impasse. Meghan's team hinted at further revelations, while palace advisors debated whether to release documents publicly or maintain a defensive stance, hoping the public would grow weary of the scandal. From whispered rumors, the case erupted into the most intense media storm in royal history. Allegations that once sparked sympathy are now met with skepticism. Denials once seen as defense now appear as wounded pride. The core question remains: where does the truth lie? With Meghan and her allies, or with the institution that once supported her but is now accused of betrayal? To understand, one must examine the trail of evidence. Before the allegations spread, a parallel story unfolded within the records, emails, and secure chat logs. Investigators mapped every financial transaction, meeting, and correspondence linking Meghan's inner circle to palace staff. They uncovered a series of meticulously documented papers, blurring the line between legitimate consulting work and secret narrative management. On March 10, 2021, the account Meghan Consulting transferred $1,200 to a junior communications staff member. 2 days after the payment, this person spoke to the press about a comment insulting Meghan's legacy. Similar payments, ranging from $1,000 to $2,500, usually made in 2 installments, appeared before each public allegation. An internal expense audit uncovered special project fees totaling over $30,000 in mid-2021, paid to employees across different departments but without accompanying invoices. These individuals later shared emotional stories that aligned with Meghan's media strategy. An analysis of thousands of encrypted messages retrieved from a research company's servers revealed that Meghan's spokesperson instructed staff to identify 3 employees to speak to the press, emphasizing feelings of isolation and racial undertones. One message requested confirmation of quotes ahead of Tuesday, accompanied by a spreadsheet listing names, departments, and media outlets. Draft press releases and consulting documents were also found, containing template phrases such as, "I feel invisible at work," and comments about my background hurt more than I expected. These statements closely matched numerous public claims reported in the media. The bank records of a community charity fund sponsored by Meghan's office showed grants that coincided with staff appearances in the media. For example, $2,000 was paid to an employee on April 8, 2021, just before he spoke out about an insulting remark at Clarence House. He later admitted the grant was offered beforehand, and the interview was only arranged after the money was deposited. Export schedules reveal that in late March, Meghan's team held at least 4 story-building workshops at Frogmore Cottage, attended by a close-knit group of trusted aides. Minutes from these sessions mention story guidelines, quote verification, and media confidentiality. One note advised telling the story in the first person, but keeping details vague to avoid scrutiny. A sidebar comment read, "Compensation for emotional labor appropriate." Each staff member stepped into the media spotlight carrying vivid memories. Yet those recollections are now compared against evidence showing those memories were carefully shaped. Alice, a communications officer with 10 years of palace service, was among the first to speak out. She described a hallway exchange where a senior royal remarked that Meghan's spirited nature clashed with the palace's solemn culture. In a televised interview, Alice's voice trembled as she recounted the overwhelming silence and Meghan's shocked expression. Yet privately, she admitted to a friend that her words had been coached and that she needed the money. A payment of $1,500 hit her account just hours before the press conference, although she insisted it was a consulting fee for a charity event without any paperwork. Mark, a longtime photographer, recounted a late-night photo shoot at the chapel where security staff whispered that some royals joked about Meghan's voice and mannerisms. He said the published photos showed her forced smile, but the original images revealed more natural moments. Mark confessed to a friend, "They told me what to say. I didn't see anything myself. They paid me $2,200 to support Alice." Priya, the assistant in charge of guest lists, recounted a lunch at Buckingham where a senior staff member commented on Meghan's foreignness. However, logs showed no such lunch took place on the date she mentioned. Priya admitted she was given talking points in advance and had confused the event. A pattern emerged. Testimonies contained kernels of truth, everyday interactions as Meghan changed routines, but were wrapped in coached dialogue and financial incentives. Many assistants described a subtle atmosphere of intimidation. Those who chose not to speak out were sidelined or lost chances for promotion. Some refused to participate, stating they had not witnessed any racism and that Meghan was treated with courtesy. However, they were later excluded from major events or passed over for advancement. An internal memo noted the absence of several assistants from high-profile occasions, attributing it to scheduling conflicts. In December 2021, several assistants recanted their statements, admitting they had been influenced by the narrative demands. One once praised administrative aide tearfully confessed that she wanted to believe in Meghan and felt pressured to reshape her memories. She said, "When you're told your story matters, you want to be part of it. But when the truth doesn't align, I realized I was being used." Psychologists explained this as a case of memory compliance, where repeated storytelling leads individuals to believe in false memories. The combination of financial rewards and repeated suggestions created the perfect storm for memory distortion. A longtime service staff member wrote in his journal about the regret he felt for amplifying false accusations, haunted by the faces of those he had implicated. Though he never spoke publicly, his story underscored the human cost of a campaign that exploited personal struggles to serve a larger narrative. By the end of the testimony phase, the personal accounts revealed more than just claims of racism. They exposed manipulation, coercion, and the blurring of truth and fabrication. Each employee's experience shed light on a different facet: the lure of extra income, the weight of expectations, and the difficulty of separating genuine grievances from orchestrated narratives. Together, they painted a picture not just of scandal, but of the psychological toll in a high-pressure environment. The palace was rocked by the initial allegations, but the royal family's response was carefully choreographed to protect tradition. Immediately after the explosive headlines, senior advisors gathered at the Duchy of Lancaster offices to analyze the leaked memos and draft a statement. King Charles III sent a letter to staff expressing concern over inappropriate behavior, reaffirming a commitment to diversity, and promising to review workplace conditions, yet he offered no apology or admission of wrongdoing. Queen Camilla emphasized her loyalty to Meghan, subtly implying that any fault lay with individuals rather than the institution itself. Behind the scenes, a task force was assembled to investigate the authenticity of the claims, assess reputational damage, and craft a legal and media strategy. Tense meetings revealed internal divisions. Some pushed to release the emails and pursue defamation lawsuits, while others feared prolonging the negative spotlight. In the end, the palace denied the existence of systemic racism, opting instead for a combination of internal review and diversity training. On social media, the palace posted about Meghan's charitable work and shared uplifting videos to soften the impact of the allegations, interspersed with cheerful birthday messages and behind-the-scenes glimpses of royal events. In June 2021, Prince William expressed regret if the family had caused any pain, emphasizing the royal family's compassion and briefly shifting the narrative toward reconciliation. Clarence House arranged interviews with longtime staff members who affirmed a respectful work environment, helping to overshadow the allegations. However, a leaked comment from a senior official, referring to the situation as American drama, caused damage. The palace issued an apology, but it was criticized as a sign of a deeply ingrained attitude. The palace sent letters requesting that media outlets retract unfounded allegations, but one newspaper pushed back, leading to a legal dispute. In response, the royal family launched an independent review of workplace culture, conducted by outside consultants, focusing on HR policies, signaling a recognition of the need for change. A press release acknowledged that a modern monarchy must be willing to learn. Internally, a memo emphasized unity, but a leaked document warned staff of disciplinary action if they disclosed information. The public strategy yielded mixed results. Older audiences supported the palace's calm response, while younger generations remained skeptical, demanding transparency through the hashtag Royal Audit. By the end of 2021, the palace released a 12-page summary of its internal review, acknowledging isolated instances of insensitivity but denying systemic racism. It proposed diversity workshops and the appointment of a dedicated diversity officer. The report drew criticism for being overly protective, yet was also praised for its candor, marking a turning point in how the royal family sought to shape the narrative. The media swarmed the allegations like moths to a flame. Immediately after the first report from an anonymous palace source, tabloids splashed bold headlines: "Royal racism exposed" and "Meghan's pay-to-play plot." Veteran royal correspondents scrambled for comments from former aides, and news programs cut in to host heated debates. Was the Queen's silence a sign of complicity? Could the monarchy hold back a wave of social change? Social media sent the frenzy into overdrive. Twitter exploded with hashtags like Megexit, a royal scandal, and palace leaks, racking up millions of views within 24 hours. On Instagram, posts paired smiling images of Meghan with damning quotes from the allegations. TikTok creators dramatized reenactments and urged viewers to share. Searches for Meghan racism surged by 800%, rivaling traffic from major events like royal coronations. The BBC aired a special featuring constitutional scholars and anti-racism advocates. CNN dispatched reporters to both London and Los Angeles, framing the story as both a personal betrayal and a constitutional crisis. Newspapers in South Africa and India drew parallels between the palace and colonial power structures. Even sports networks weighed in, discussing the scandal's potential impact on the Commonwealth. Tabloids relentlessly rolled out sensational headlines, splashing photos of a shocked Meghan in palace hallways beneath captions like, "Cash plot to topple the crown." Television coverage was non-stop. BBC Breakfast speculated about a televised royal racism inquiry. Sky News hosted roundtable discussions on the impact to royal tours. Good Morning America presented detailed graphics tracing payment flows, and Anderson Cooper questioned legal experts on whether Meghan's actions could constitute a criminal offense. Social media turned into a battlefield. On Twitter, influencers posted compilation videos of Meghan's past statements with captions like, "Now we know why she said that." Dramatic TikTok reenactments titled, "Meghan Paid, How Far Will She Go?" racked up millions of views. Instagram stories ran polls, while Facebook groups spread unverified rumors. Searches for Meghan Paid staff surged by 1,200% within 48 hours of the leaked emails, with 65% of comments expressing negative sentiment toward Meghan. Royal-focused podcasts pivoted to dissect the unfolding saga, analyzing each development and featuring interviews with insiders and commentators. Brands associated with the royal family began to waver. A luxury watch company canceled plans to launch a Sussex Wedding Anniversary Edition. A charity gala quietly removed its royal hosting segment. In Australia, newspapers ran cartoons of a kangaroo stuffing cash into a palace. In India, commentators linked the allegations to the legacy of colonialism. In Canada, debates erupted over the credibility of the Governor-General. Even the Vatican weighed in, analyzing the impact on faith-based institutions. Celebrities joined the fray. Comedians turned the scandal into punchlines, activists spotlighted systemic discrimination, and a talk show went viral after guests got into a heated on-air argument over the controversy. Investigative journalists released exposés tracing the money trail, complete with bank PDFs and detailed timelines of interactions. Podcasts reenacted the leaked emails, while experts broke down how the campaign was orchestrated within the palace environment. Universities hosted symposiums on the Meghan phenomenon, covering topics from royal brand management to the ethics of paid testimony, drawing thousands of online viewers. But some audiences grew weary, criticizing the media spectacle as a circus that distracted from global issues. Satirical magazines depicted Meghan clutching bags of money, while former aides publicly urged the press to move on. Still, each new leak, whether an email, confession, or palace response, reignited the debate. YouTube became flooded with long-form analysis videos, Patreon accounts offered exclusive updates, and Reddit split into pro-Sussex and pro-royal factions, each with tens of thousands of dedicated followers. Other news stories were eclipsed. Natural disasters, geopolitical tensions, and medical breakthroughs were pushed aside to make room for royal drama. Financial channels warned of the scandal's impact on the monarchy's brand value. Advertisers scrambled to secure slots alongside the trending controversy, while some brands pulled out to avoid being caught in the crossfire. Media ethics panels ignited fierce debate. Some argued the public had a right to know, while others warned that fixating on unverified rumors was eroding journalistic standards. royal fatigue set in, with audiences complaining about monarchy overload. Yet each new revelation extended the life of the story. The scandal underscored the power of narrative in the digital age. A coordinated campaign of leaks, payments, and strategic messaging can dominate global attention, shape public perception, and force even the most established institutions onto the defensive. To understand how such a scheme unfolded and the lessons it teaches about the power of storytelling, we consulted 3 experts in law, public relations, and psychology. Legal consequences. Fabricating allegations can carry serious legal ramifications. In the UK, defamation laws require proof that a false statement caused harm. If Meghan's team funded false testimonies, the royal family or palace staff could pursue damages through civil litigation. Evidence such as payments, directive emails, and draft quotes could establish intent to deceive. Breach of contract is another concern, as palace employees are typically bound by confidentiality agreements. Accepting payment to leak information could lead to internal disciplinary actions or civil suits. If bribery is involved, criminal charges may apply, triggering investigations by the Serious Fraud Office or other law enforcement agencies. Public relations impact. A revealed conspiracy often causes far greater damage than the original allegation. While the public may be initially shocked by the claims, discovering they were staged leads to a collapse of trust, not only in the orchestrator but also in the media outlets that helped spread the narrative. Case studies from corporate scandals, such as CEOs caught fabricating internal surveys, show sharp declines in brand value, shareholder confidence, and stakeholder trust. In Meghan's case, her personal brand, built around authenticity and social advocacy, would face a credibility crisis. Partners, sponsors, and charitable organizations typically move quickly to distance themselves to protect their own reputations. Crisis management experts emphasize that in such scenarios, rapid response and transparency are crucial. Delays or evasions only deepen the damage. The irony is that efforts to control the narrative through legal threats or defensive statements often backfire, drawing even more attention to the misconduct. Common advice is to admit mistakes, provide clear evidence of corrective actions, and redirect public focus toward positive initiatives. Without such redirection, individuals risk being defined by the scandal, overshadowing any prior goodwill. Psychologically, experts highlight 2 main phenomena: memory conformity and moral licensing. Memory conformity occurs when individuals are repeatedly exposed to a suggested narrative and begin to internalize those suggestions as their own memories. In the palace context, assistants guided with specific talking points may come to believe they genuinely witnessed the events described. Combined with financial incentives, this effect is amplified. People often rationalize their involvement by viewing the payment as validation of their contribution, a form of moral licensing that lessens internal resistance to dishonesty. Behavioral psychologists also consider the broader impact on audiences. When media consumers realize they have been deceived, they experience feelings of betrayal, which diminish their willingness to accept truthful messages from the same source in the future. This avoidance of perceived betrayal means Meghan's future advocacy efforts may be met with skepticism, regardless of their actual merit. The royal institution also faces a trust deficit. If observers conclude the palace was unfairly maligned, genuine sympathy for real grievances may decrease. In summary, these analyses highlight the powerful impact of narrative control and the risks of distorting the truth. Experts agree that in a media landscape driven by headlines and clicks, the allure of a sensational story can tempt public figures to cross ethical boundaries. However, the long-term costs, legal risks, brand erosion, and psychological consequences far outweigh any short-term gains in attention or sympathy. In the digital age, where every document can be leaked and every statement scrutinized, authenticity remains the only lasting foundation for influence. To understand how the fabricated accusation campaign was constructed, we must examine the precise mechanisms through which false narratives are planted, nurtured, and amplified. This section analyzes the coordinated steps, from initial planning and participant selection to staging interviews and disseminating orchestrated content, revealing a detailed scheme that transformed individual grievances into a globally consumed scandal. The campaign began with strategic meetings among Meghan's closest advisors, held at Frogmore Cottage, and supported by a renowned communications consultancy. By late February 2021, they drafted a story map, a document outlining objectives, target audiences, key messages, and risk mitigation tactics. The map identified three primary goals: to highlight allegations of racial discrimination within the palace, to bolster public support ahead of upcoming media deals, and to position Meghan as an authoritative voice on diversity. It also included contingency plans for adverse scenarios such as public skepticism or legal backlash. With their goals set, Meghan's team began vetting palace staff using internal directories and informal conversations. They targeted individuals who met three criteria: close proximity to Meghan's daily activities, existing dissatisfaction or ambition for advancement, and susceptibility to financial incentives. A confidential spreadsheet listed over 20 assistants, each evaluated based on factors such as tenure, department, and personal background. Next came the screening calls. In early March, confidential contacts were made with selected staff under the guise of diversity consulting opportunities. The calls were framed as invitations to share their experiences candidly in a private interview, with the promise of remuneration ranging from $1,000 to $3,000. Potential participants were given confidentiality agreements drawn up by Meghan's legal team, preventing them from discussing the true purpose of the initiative or admitting the origins of their involvement. Once participants signed on, they entered the scripting phase. Draft scripts were prepared for each assistant, tailored to their roles and personalities, but adhering to overarching themes. For kitchen staff, scripts emphasized casual remarks about spices or unusual cooking. For logistics coordinators, the focus was on dismissive comments about the American-style event planning. Each script included cue phrases, emotional pacing, and fallback responses to handle probing questions. During small group training sessions, advisors guided assistants through mock interviews. They emphasized the importance of authenticity, encouraging participants to weave in personal stories while maintaining consistency with approved themes. Recordings of these sessions served both as rehearsals and training materials for media producers to ensure uniformity across platforms. To avoid drawing attention, payments were structured in layers. Instead of transferring funds directly from Meghan's personal account, money flowed through an intermediary fund called the Global Outreach Initiative. This fund issued grants to participants with disbursements timed 24 to 48 hours before interviews. Payment receipts carried innocuous descriptions like community participation fee or event coordination allowance, masking any link to the narrative campaign. In some cases, the grants were combined with legitimate consulting work, such as advising on charity events themed around Princess Diana to create an appearance of authenticity. Participants were instructed to claim the payments originated from these legitimate activities if questioned. With trained and paid participants, Meghan's team coordinated with select media outlets to schedule exclusive interviews. Preferred channels included mid-tier tabloids and popular digital news platforms known for rapid coverage and sensational presentation. In each case, interviewers received briefing packs detailing key talking points, suggested questions, and embargo deadlines. Photographers were sometimes present to capture emotional reactions, enhancing the credibility of testimonies. To maximize impact, interviews were released in phases, the first wave at the end of March, coinciding with Meghan's anniversary of her first public royal appearance. Subsequent waves in mid-April, aligning with the Netflix contract announcement. And early May, ahead of prominent charity events. This drip-feed approach ensured the story remained hot for weeks rather than exploding all at once. Beyond official interviews, Meghan's team orchestrated controlled leaks. Interview excerpts and behind-the-scenes photos were leaked to social media influencers, who posted them as exclusive insights into palace life. These influencers, some boasting hundreds of thousands of followers, shared the content with personal commentary, generating grassroots momentum that mainstream outlets later cited. Simultaneously, bots and paid advertisers were deployed on Twitter and Instagram to amplify hashtags and interview links. Analytics reports showed that within hours, topics like Nash Palace bias and Dash Meghan Speaks Now trended in the global top 10, attracting new audiences. As the story spread, Meghan's advisors monitored public reactions in real time. Social media listening tools aggregated sentiment analysis, highlighting which narratives resonated and which faced skepticism. Based on this data, scripts and messages were refined. Ineffective statements, such as vague references to whispers about skin color, were discarded, while vivid incidents like comments about imported values were emphasized and repackaged in subsequent interviews. This iterative approach enabled the campaign to adapt swiftly, reinforcing accepted narratives and sidelining those that didn't withstand scrutiny. It also allowed Meghan's team to stay ahead of counterarguments by releasing additional details or overshadowing unfavorable news. Maintaining plausible deniability was paramount. Communications were routed through multiple intermediaries, memos bore innocuous file names, and public statements emphasized that payments were for legitimate consulting services. The legal team advised participants to avoid explicit admissions during interviews, reminding them to speak only about personal experiences. When the palace launched investigations, Meghan's team argued that similar consulting arrangements are common in corporate and nonprofit sectors, portraying their actions as standard practice, thus obscuring evidence of intentional deception. Retreat strategy. By late summer 2021, advisors implemented a withdrawal plan. Payments and training ceased. Participants were assisted in exiting through career reference letters or roles in charitable initiatives. Some received additional hush money in exchange for extended non-disclosure agreements. Contingency plans for legal or reputational crises were prepared, with the legal team ready to sue outlets reporting on the fabricated allegations, and the PR unit crafting talking points to redirect attention toward Meghan's diversity advocacy work. Ultimately, the orchestration mechanisms reveal this was not a spontaneous uprising, but a meticulously designed campaign. Every step, from participant selection, script writing, interview timing, to hashtag amplification, was calculated to maximize impact. The result was a media storm, forcing the royal family and a global audience to confront allegations that, according to evidence, were as much the product of a strategy room as of real experiences. As soon as the first allegations surfaced, public opinion split sharply into two opposing camps, with social media becoming the main battleground. Critics of Meghan's tactics condemned the paid fabrication campaign as a betrayal of public trust. Supporters defended her right to expose genuine prejudice, arguing that fundraising for diversity initiatives was legitimate. In the days following the leak of emails and payment records, online polls recorded a shift in public opinion. A British tabloid website ran a quick survey asking readers if they believed Meghan orchestrated a smear campaign. Within 48 hours, over 200,000 votes poured in. 62% sided with the palace, 28% supported Meghan, and 10% remained undecided. In the U.S., the numbers differed. 44% backed the palace, reflecting cultural divides over the monarchy and race. On Twitter, hashtags #RuckMegxit and Palace Truth fiercely competed. By the weekend, analytics services recorded over 5 million tweets containing Palace Truth, many accompanied by photos of bank statements and emails. Meanwhile, #RuckMegxit generated about 3 million posts. Thank you all for watching the entire video. If you found this video meaningful, please like and subscribe to support our channel.